Tycoons of Small Biz, a podcast where small business owners are celebrated as the backbone of the American economy. Each week, we introduce you to tycoons who share their stories and advice so that small business owners may learn from their experiences. Tycoons is powered by Backbone Planning Partners. Join us now as our hosts connect you to today's Tycoons.
Good afternoon, Tycoons, and welcome to today's episode of Tycoons of Small Biz. I'm your host here, as always, Austin Peterson, coming to you live from Gilbert, Arizona. And we've got a special treat today. We've got Landon Mance, one of the beginning co-hosts and co-founders of Tycoons of Small Biz. Landon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother. Always good to be
here. Yeah, excited to unpack this with you because we got kind of a big announcement here for our listeners. And I've kind of teased it a little bit over the last, call it 5-6 episodes, something like that. But we're going to be making a big change to the podcast. And I'm going to let Landon kind of lay that out here in a little bit. But before, I kind of want to just take a step back and talk about some of the things that we've been able to accomplish here with this podcast. So Tycoons of Small Biz, as many of you know, started on Cinco de Mayo 2020. That was right at the beginning of the pandemic. It was right after Landon had his twins prematurely and was dealing with a lot of stuff going, with them in the ICU and or the NICU and just trying to kind of deal with all that. And a lot has gone on over the last 3.5 years. So fast forward, we've actually recorded 166 episodes of Tycoons of Small Biz, and we're really proud of what we've accomplished here. We're grateful for the guests that have been on. We've, like I said, we've interviewed about 166 different business owners and let them come on and tell their story and talk about what it is that makes them unique, talk about their journey, give some advice, those sorts of things, which has been extremely impactful and something that we've been grateful for. I've appreciated hosting most of those and talking directly with these business owners and getting a feel for what they're really passionate about and getting that story out there. And so I've learned a lot from them about business, but I've also learned a lot from them about just what it takes to be a business owner and truly be the backbone of the American economy here. And so, those are kind of the main things that I would recap and be grateful for over the last 3.5 years. But Landon, what about you? What's impacted you the most?
Yeah, I would just kind of add that, we can't forget about the probably, I'd say 10 to 15 nonprofits, that we brought on. Maybe it's not quite that high, but I don't know. We tried to bring a nonprofit on once a quarter. I don't know if that actually panned out exactly, but let's just say we brought on somewhere between 8 and maybe 12 or 15. And one of those nonprofits I've gotten pretty linked up to, which is Shields and Stripes, and I've gone to some of their events and, there's been people that have donated, to the cause there. And so that jumps out at me a lot. For some reason, one thing that also stands out to me is the interview that we did with my sister, Dana. Not sure why, probably because she's my sister. But that interview really sticks out to me. She's built a really great business, Prism Boutique, out of Long Beach, California. And just kind of a shout out to all the people that are in retail that have independent boutiques and stores, especially in the retail clothing space. That market is just getting absolutely hammered right now. So if you're listening to this and, we're coming into the holiday season, I would just challenge all of us to go out and support small business, especially those that are seeing the biggest headwinds right now. So find your local boutique and local small business agencies and outlets, whatever they are, and go out and support them. Let's see what we can do to prop up small business coming into the holiday season.
Yeah, I think that's a great message. Obviously, we started this podcast, like we've mentioned, a little over 3.5 years ago. And it's because we believe in the small business community. We believe that the small businesses are truly the backbone of the economy. And some of those, specifically, like you said, in retail clothing, are being hammered pretty well. Amazon's this big behemoth. A lot of the businesses that you're buying stuff from on Amazon are actually small businesses. So that's a positive. But it also is taking away from some of those retail shops, that little boutique like you talked about that your sister Dana has, and the way that she's, really pushed that forward. I mean, the things that she does, seems to me that she was kind of way ahead of her time. She was out there before most, being that, quote unquote social media influencer and getting the clothing out there and showing the lifestyle behind her brand and all those sorts of things. And that's what the small business owner community does, is they're innovative and they figure out a way to make it work and to compete with really large organizations that, outspend them, outwork them, do a lot of those things, or not outwork, but they have larger organizations that allow them to have more boots on the ground, more people pushing that brand forward than a small business owner has. And the only thing that we have is to be unique and innovative and outwork those larger businesses to try to drive sales.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think there's someone else that deserves a quick shout out, and that's you, man. You've kind of taken over the reins of hosting the show. It's probably been what, year and a half or 2 years since I've hosted with you regularly. So you've carried the bulk of this for the last couple of years. And I think you do a phenomenal job of really kind of humanizing the stories of the people that we bring onto the show. We've gotten a little bit of feedback from a couple people just saying that our show was not necessarily the right kind of thing for them. And maybe that was because we've got this element to the show of this getting to know the person, right? Before we start to get to know the story behind the business. And I think that makes our podcast pretty unique, is that we spend a decent amount of time letting them tell us about them, their family, their upbringing, their education, the story behind how they got to where they are now. And then of course that leads into, the business that they're building. But I think you do an excellent job of kind of extracting, those stories from people so that we can really get a sense of who they are and what's important to them. And then you just make a really nice transition into, learning about the business, and you incorporate your own personal stories, and you tie it all together, really, really nicely. So kudos to you, brother, for just being a really great host and interviewer, excuse me.
No, I appreciate that. It has been a lot of work, but it's also been extremely rewarding. It's been fun. Like I mentioned, I've enjoyed getting to know so many of these guests that we've had on the show. And honestly, for our listeners, some of them know this, some of them don't, but we would have never had a podcast if it weren't for you pushing us to have a podcast, right? I mean, I felt like it was a cool thing to do and a great way to kind of get a message out, but I worried about being able to find the time and the effort to make it happen. And kudos to you for keeping me honest and pushing me on to say, let's do this. We really should do this. So thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's kind of cool to talk about this publicly, because I want to clarify, because it's obviously when we launched Tycoons, it was a really interesting time globally. And it was also a very interesting time for me because my twins had been born and were in the NICU, and had some pretty gnarly things we were dealing with. They're happy, they're healthy. There's no lingering health effects now, just in case anybody's wondering. But at the time, it was pretty gnarly. My daughter was 2 pounds and my son was 3 when they were born. So just going through a really interesting time for me, as well as, we all were. We were dealing with a new normal that was just bizarre and unprecedented and just weird, and every other adjective you could probably imagine that maybe has a slight negative connotation. But as I remember, so yes, I was pushing for the podcast. We were talking about it. But as I recall, obviously I was spending a lot of time at the hospital, and basically you put it together though. Like, you actually put it all together and rolled it out, because I remember a conversation and you're like, dude, I got this rolling, and the first episode is going to be here. You probably won't be able to join, but like, you can just jump in whenever you're ready. And you actually rolled it out. That is how it went down, right? I mean, I know it's kind of weird for me to be asking you this, but it was so long ago now, and it was such an interesting time that I just want to make sure that I'm reflecting back on that, accurately.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true, but I mean, we would have never gotten to that point if you hadn't pushed it, right? I mean, essentially, it ended up that it was becoming obvious that Tia was going to deliver early, and that it was going to cause you to not be able to be there at the very beginning. And so we contemplated, or I think maybe you mentioned, why don't we delay starting? And I said, you know what, no, let's just do it. We've already got a guest lined up. It's somebody that I know. It's somebody that's done these before. I've been on their podcast, so let's just go ahead and roll with it, and I can handle it for a few weeks until you're ready to go. So yeah, that is the way it came together, but we would have never even gotten to that point if it weren't for you pushing it.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, yeah. Team effort for sure.
Well, speaking of thank yous, I think it's important at this point as we make this big change in our podcast. And I know we're kind of having everybody wait to kind of see what this means, but I want to thank those who helped us get started with the format that we have had over the last 3.5 years. And we wouldn't have gotten started. We wouldn't have gotten anywhere if it weren't for the help of Karen Nowicki and Daryl. Why am I blanking on Daryl's last name? Anyway, Daryl. I mean, Daryl knows who he is. We know exactly who Daryl is. But if it weren't for them at Phoenix Business Radio X, we would have never gotten this off the ground. And then over the first couple of years, we had some great sponsors. We had Fintrepid Solutions, and we had Pivotal Advisors. So Ryan Weissmuller and Gary Braun. If we didn't have those guys on our side and working with us and co-hosting and sponsoring the show, we probably wouldn't have made it as far as we did. So I wanted to make sure that we took an opportunity to thank them for their help there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, Karen and Daryl were just huge in getting us to where we are right now. We decided to take the production of the podcast in-house earlier this year, but it had nothing to do at all with the production of the show, from their side, or just anything negative at all. I mean, they just did an absolutely phenomenal job for the almost 3 years, or 2.5 or 3 years that they were producing the show. So our hats are off to them. They were excellent partners the entire way, and learned a ton from them, and they brought a lot of value to the show. And so we love you guys. And if you're thinking about starting a podcast and you're really looking for a plus quality partner to help you launch your podcast and then manage it on an ongoing basis, definitely reach out to Karen or Daryl at Phoenix Business Radio X.
Yeah, for sure. They really helped us get our start, and we definitely couldn't have done it without them. So Landon, I think we've made people wait long enough. So I'm going to toss it back over to you to kind of just talk about what comes next. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And what does, maybe the first quarter of next year look like?
Yeah, definitely. So, we've been talking about this for a while now, and I'm going to be just totally frank with the people that listen to the show, because that's how I am. We have gotten immense value from doing Tycoons for the last 3.5 years. We've met incredible people, heard countless just unbelievable stories, and we literally have interviewed some of the top entrepreneurs in the country. And I mean that genuinely. And these are not people that have built the Amazons and the Googles and the PayPals of the world. These are the people that employ, what's the number, 80% of the population, or I don't know, whatever the number is, 60-80% of the population. These are the small business owners, the Main Street business owners, the 10 to 100 employee companies that a lot of people have worked for their entire lives, and built great lives off of working for these small businesses. But all good things must come to an end, and we've thought about it, we've prayed about it, and in its current format of bringing a small business owner on and interviewing them on the show. First, we were doing it weekly, then we pivoted to bi-weekly. That current format is going to sunset starting at the end of this month. So as we come into January, Tycoons of Small Biz will still exist, but it is going to exist in a different format. And that format is going to be Austin and I recording a show every 2 weeks. And it is going to be off of an outline that we have spent a lot of time designing and building. And we are going to get some input from y'all, but it is going to be basically us coming on the show and talking about specific topics that we believe will bring a lot of value to the small business owner community. For the last 4 or 5 years, Austin and I have focused our time, our effort, our money, our resources on building out a business that is focused on bringing a ton of value to the small business owner community. And we do that through our wealth management practice. We do that through the podcast. We do that through writing. We do that through social media posts and, so forth and so on. And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about a broad quarterly theme. And then every 2 weeks, we're going to drill down into a specific topic as a sub theme of the quarterly theme. And the entire point behind it now is to just bring a lot more value, not just to the Tycoons community, but to the small business community at large. And so just as an example, in Q1, our theme is going to be building a robust investment portfolio outside of just public securities. So we're going to talk about what does it look like to invest in the private markets, specifically private equity, angel investing, VC investing. We're going to look at funds versus private placements. We're going to look at private real estate. Obviously, we're going to tie in some other stuff like taxes. In Q1, we'll do like a special edition episode on small business taxes. Obviously, we're not CPAs, we're not giving advice, but we have enough experience in that world to where we can share some thoughts, ideas around the CPA, the tax professional that you're working with, and some specific ideas that you can consider for yourself kind of coming into tax season. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to be doing. And Austin, I don't know, anything you want to add to that real quick?
Yeah, let me just add real quick. You and I are smart people. You maybe more than me, but we're smart people, and we definitely know this community. But the reality is we don't know everything, right? And so there are certain aspects of what we will do over the coming years where we will still have a guest or guests on the program that are experts in a particular area. Right. And so, like Landon just mentioned, we're not CPAs. We don't give tax advice, but we've spent, for me, a little over 20 years, for Landon about 12 or 13 years, spending a lot of time with business owners and a lot of time with business owners alongside of their CPAs. And we understand that world pretty well enough to really kind of, for lack of a better term, call out a CPA on some advice that they've given and say, that makes sense in this particular area, but did you think about how it'll impact this part of the business, or for that person individually, the business owner individually, how it will impact their financial situation in the grand scheme of things. And it allows us to kind of give that pushback. And so, we're definitely not experts in every area for sure. And we will have experts that'll come on to kind of help us build a more robust experience on particular topics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a very successful anesthesiologist here in Las Vegas, and he was telling me, this was on Saturday at a Ugly Sweater Christmas party, he was telling me that he just changed his CPA. And I know you're going to get a kick out of this because he literally said how excited he is to be working with this new CPA firm because they respond to his emails. There's a joke in that community, you know, about how do you know if you find a good CPA? Well, they respond to your email or your phone call. So anyway, not a knock on CPAs at all, but I thought that was just kind of funny. But yeah, super excited to do that as well. You know, we don't have anything formal around when and who we will bring on to the show as far as the guests go. But basically, we've got a network of, I would say, some of the best CPAs, attorneys, tax people in the country. And so we will tap those people to bring in to contribute to these discussions. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. Let's not forget that, because the conversations are going to be kind of light and fun, so that we want to bring people on that we can joke around with and we can laugh and we can have a good time, because that's how we like to do things. That's also how we like to do business. I mean, obviously we're serious about the advice and the planning work that we do for our clients, but we also like to do it in a really lighthearted, kind of fun, spirited way. So those are the people that we'll look to attract onto the show.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. And for me, selfishly, I mean, those who listened to the episodes early on when you were a co-host with me every week got a little bit of a vision into how you and I like to interact with each other and joke back and forth. And so I'm looking forward to kind of bringing that back more. But again, like you said, laying out topics that are really important, and that you're not typically going to have. These are not conversations that you're typically going to have with your CPA or your current financial advisor or anything like that, because it's just not what they do. And so us being able to bring to the table other topics that small business owners are interested in and want to understand and know better, I'm really excited to be able to do that and bring it to them.
Yeah. And I'll just add, as we close this up, I'll just add that in our world, in the financial services world, whether you have a financial advisor, a financial planner, a wealth manager, whatever we're calling ourselves these days, what differentiates you and I from 99.9% of the other ones out there is the fact that, one, we both come from long lines of entrepreneurs in our families. Grandparents, aunts and uncles, siblings, parents, soon to be maybe some of our kids, you know, as well. But we've bought businesses, we've started businesses, we've sold businesses, we've facilitated sales of businesses, we've facilitated partner buyouts, investments out of and into businesses, a lot of real estate stuff as well. Developments, single family homes, multifamily real estate. So I'm not saying we've done it all, because we haven't, but we've done a whole lot of stuff around the private investing marketplace, specifically around small business. So I think that we bring a really, really unique perspective, and we're hoping to zoom in on that and to really share that as best we're capable of doing with not only the clients that we serve in Backbone Planning Partners, but the Tycoons, a small biz community, and really hoping to build this community out into something much larger, so that we can make a real impact on the small business owner community specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just kind of close by saying that, you know, that is our hope, is that those past guests, so the 160-ish past guests that have been on our podcast, will feel much more connected to a community with other business owners, and that they'll want to learn together and interact together. That's really our push in trying to do this, is say, okay, we've gotten the stories out there, we've learned some things along the way for sure, but now what can we do to help our community level up?
Yeah, I love that. Well, we'll be at it, for first or second week in January. We're going to record every 2 weeks. If you're listening to this and there's something that's top of mind that you'd really like to learn more about, kind of just in relation to what we've just laid out here, email us, Landon Austin at backboneplanning.com, or we've got our Tycoons email addresses as well. So yeah, drop us a note, tell us something that's on your mind that you'd like to, learn more about. And we're happy to incorporate that into one of our broad quarterly themes, and we'll find a specific episode to dedicate it to. So I'll just say thank you to everybody that's listening. This has been an incredible journey, and we're not done yet by any stretch.
Yep, no doubt about it. And if you're listening to this during the holiday season, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. However you're celebrating, just do it with family, love those around you, and reach out to those who are in need more than you are.
Yeah, well said. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Tycoons of Small Biz, a podcast for small business owners by small business owners. Join us next week for an introduction to another great tycoon, and be sure to follow us on our social media channels for links to all of our episodes and great content.